guys, are you ready for another Make It Monday? This is Betsy for Papertrey Ink, and today I'm going to show you how to sponge an ombre background and then add a little bit of texture and pattern with one of our new stencils. So let's get started. Alright, you can see here I have an assortment of inks. I have a range of pinks as well as a yellow, and I'm going to be sponging a background that fades from the pinks to the yellow. Now you can really simplify this and use just one color pink and one color yellow if you want. I like kind of the variation that the berry sorbet gives between the other pink. It kind of has that orangey hue, which will help to blend the colors a little bit, but you can kind of see how it goes as you go along sponging yours. You might be fine with just two colors, and yeah, just see how it goes. So as for tools here, I am using the Ranger round handle and sponges, and I have one sponge for each color family, the yellow and the pink, and you can see mine are pretty dirty, they're pretty saturated, but I find that they work a little better once they get pretty full of ink. So I like to use mine until they start to crumble, and then it's time to let them go. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the berry sorbet ink, and there's been a lot of talk about how to get really smooth color when you're sponging, and so I'm going to just show you my process here, and I will show you it in real time. I won't edit out any of the sponging, so you can kind of see exactly how much time I spend on getting everything even, and that way if you want to fast forward, go ahead. But I'll show you in real time here how much blending I do to get an even background. So I'm going to start off with the berry sorbet, and for when I start off, I use very light strokes and very light pressure. In fact, I'm really not even putting any pressure on that sponge right now. I'm just kind of letting it float across my paper and just using some kind of fast circular and back and forth strokes. And you just really need to kind of just take your time and let the color build. So I'm going very lightly here, really not even putting any pressure on the sponge at all. Just kind of letting it float across the paper. And you'll just kind of see that color start to deepen as you go over it multiple times. And I'm going to keep my pink color kind of down here towards the bottom of the page so that I have room to fade into the yellow. And I'm still here, not putting hardly any pressure at all. And you can, after you tap your sponge into your ink pad, you can just do a real quick dab onto your work surface, your background scrap paper here, if you want to get a little bit of that excess ink off of there before you touch that sponge to your actual project, because that can kind of help get rid of that initial big bunch of ink that you might end up leaving sponge marks or brush marks on your background. Okay, so you can really see how my color is building here, and as it's building, now I am starting to add a little more pressure to my sponge. It's not quite as crucial. Once you get that good base layer of color built up, it's not quite as crucial. Your brush sponge marks aren't going to show quite as bad once you get a really nice even base layer built. Okay, so I'm feeling like that's pretty good for the berry sorbet. Now I'm going to switch to the hibiscus and then work my way into the raspberry fizz, kind of just down along the bottom. So I'm going to use a little bit of hibiscus now, and I'm going to kind of stay away from this area where it's more of the berry sorbet and kind of work my way just down to the bottom to the bottom edge here. And again, the deeper color you get, the more pressure you can add to your sponge. Right now I'm putting some pretty good pressure on that sponge. And again, just tap off if you feel like you need that little bit of help to kind of get the initial ink off of your sponge to prevent those sponge marks. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my Raspberry Fizz, and I'm really just going to kind of get this bottom edge with the Raspberry Fizz. Makes a real nice gradient of the pinks from light to dark. Alright, so I'm feeling pretty good about how that is looking so far. So now I'm going to switch to my yellow sponge here on my handle, and I'm going to grab my Harvest Gold ink. And again, another thing is if you want to kind of build color, it also helps to start with a lighter shade. Like if I wanted to go kind of a lighter to a darker yellow, or even build a darker yellow just on its own, it does help to start with a lighter shade first. Like I would start with Harvest Gold and then maybe go over the top of it with some Summer Sunrise if I was wanting a deeper yellow color. So I'm just going to start here with my Harvest Gold, and again here, since I'm starting with a new color, I'm going to use really light pressure, just hardly any pressure. Just kind of let that sponge just kind of rest on top of your paper and kind of guide it into strokes and circular strokes and back and forth strokes, whatever works better for you. But yeah, again, once you start out with another color, and I'm kind of in a lighter area here, really light. Kind of takes patience. You gotta just give it time. And I'm going to work on this area here, really blending those colors, the pink to the yellow, so I get a nice even transition there. Okay, and you can see here where it's transitioning into the white here. Whenever I work on blending that area, I'm going to make sure that I have not just dipped my sponge into the ink pad. So kind of blend, you know, down here where it's darker, and then to get kind of that excess ink off of your pad. And then if you want to work on blending this area, you can do that after you don't have as much ink onto your sponge. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about how that looks. I think we have a nice, even, saturated color. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add a little bit of pattern. I'm using one of the stencils from the Modern Backgrounds, stencil collection that we released just during the February release. And I'm going to use a little bit of tape to kind of hold that down, and then I'm going to be using the same ink colors really here. I'm using the same yellow. You could switch to something darker if you would like a shade darker color, but I really don't find that it's necessary. If you get just a real subtle pattern. And again, I'm going to be just kind of working on fading that color out. I'm going to put more concentrated color here where I have a deeper yellow in the background, and then kind of work on just fading out into nothing here. So I'm using really light pressure up here where I want the color to just fade out, and then I'll use more pressure down here where my background is more saturated. And then I'm going to switch to my pink. I'll switch to my pink pad and also pink ink. I'm using Berry Sorbet here, where this transitions from the pink to the yellow. I'm using the Berry Sorbet. And then down to the bottom I might switch to the Raspberry Fizz. And you might not think that it's having much of an effect here when your stencil is laying on top of your project, but when you pull it away, you'll be able to see that pattern. Okay, so let's pull it away and let's see what we have. There we go, that turned out pretty good. Just a nice subtle tone-on-tone pattern. Okay, so then we can finish off our card. I have some tulips here that I'm going to layer over top of my background. And then I'm also going to stamp a sentiment. And the sentiment and the flowers are both from Tulip Time. I have some black ink. I'll just stamp this sentiment right down here. Just a pretty happy birthday. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and adhere my tulips. And I have shades of, these are stamped in shades of Sweet Blush and Hibiscus Burst, and then this cluster is stamped in Sweet Blush and Berry Sorbet. So we kind of have both shades of the pink going on here. And then I also have a couple of butterflies from the Tulip Time set as well. And we'll just put those over top of the blooms. And you can see my stems are hanging over the edge of my paper here, so I'll just go ahead and trim those off. Then we have created a really pretty background for our tulips. You can go ahead and adhere that to a card base and you're all set to go. Okay, so thanks for watching. This has been Betsy Veldman for Papertrey Ink, and I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on creating sponged ombre backgrounds and then also adding a little pattern with our new stencils. Thanks for watching.